what are some of those like great use cases from all the listeners and the viewers that are going to look back and play through this? What are some of those use cases that you've seen generative AI plus CX being successful for CX or CX teams or CX employees?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many, right? That's part of the challenge. But the other challenge that I see a lot of organizations have is that they have so much data that it takes a lot to turn that data into actual insights that they can act on.
Mm.
And the power of AI is that you can do that in, record time, and you can apply it to the micro level, to that individual customer. So for example, instead of just saying to like right now, if you board a plane and you are a million miler for something, one of the flight attendants might know that because they were told in advance. They have to go over to your seat, they have to find you, they say, hey, we really appreciate you being a million miler. But it's very dependent on somebody actually taking the initiative with that insight to do something about it. With AI now, and with thinking about how we can filter through all of that data and identify that one individual customer, we can also then prompt the specific employee in real time, or we can actually provide something in their digital experience as they're booking their flight. We can connect all of these dots so that they feel very special. They feel like they're getting that very personalized experience that we all crave.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's really the fact that we are connecting data in a more powerful way. So I would encourage everybody to think about, where are those points where you are really dependent on the right employee doing the right thing? And how could you leverage data if you could have that visibility in the right moment of the journey, either for the customer or for the employee, or just kind of in general? How could you actually do that? That's a great way to think about it.
Mhm.
Love it. Finding that right moment to have the biggest impact.
Mhm.
Love it. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I mine would have been the same. The interconnectedness of the data is the biggest thing that I think is going to really make a difference in the customer experience. And Jeannie's example was for really being able to like delight the customer. But we also
Mm.
see, you call your mortgage company and you tried to set up auto pay, maybe you miss a payment, you call up and they've got a hold on your account, you have to call back the next day, and then again you're like, "Hey, I just want to set up auto pay and I'm all paid up." And they're like, "No, now you got to call again 2 days later." Like really being able to streamline those flows and have all the data available so that you're able to correct, or assist people with what it is that they're trying to do in real time rather than having them call back 2 days later. And I think that that's going to solve a lot of pain for a lot of people.
Nice. Nice. Vin, what are your thoughts? Some
When I
great
look at
use
the
cases.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I look at the open, sort of open field of opportunity, what comes down to at least what stands out to me is the ability to focus on workflows and changing workflows. How does this change in the workflow improve the customer experience? And I want some sort of evidence of that or some theory of that before we start the initiative. And I think that's important when we're doing opportunity discovery, when we're doing use case selection. We should look at that granular level. And that's sort of the high level theme that brings all of these different use cases together, is we're talking about making a change in the customer workflow. And by making that change, the customer is going to have a better experience. They're going to be more delighted with interacting with the brand, because when you think about it, brand's really the way you feel when you leave every interaction with the business. And if you can use data, if you can use AI to improve those workflows, customers leave more satisfied. And that's the point of experience. That's really the point of data. Again, putting people and customers at the center. That's where you can see significant gains from data and from AI.
Yeah, yeah, and I think for me, like one of those use cases, and Kristen talked about this, right? I think is like we always talk about how we make such a delightful experience, right? but we've all had customer experience. I mean, I'm not gonna even say the customer experience I just had, but it was dealing with a very large bank. And I'm like, why should I be going through all of this? Like, I think part of the customer experience should be like, when I need you to be responsive, I need you to be reactive, and I need you to get things done for me, right? Like, that's a great experience, right? Versus
Mhm.
like, I think Kristen, to your point, and like the experience I just had from a customer experience perspective, it took me literally. I'm like, why do I have to come into a bank? I haven't came into a bank in like a decade. Like, I'm like, why do I have to do this in a bank like that? Ain't no form you can send me, and they're like, yeah, we got to send you a form, but you got to hard copy it. You got to like wet like on wet ink. I'm like, what do you send it through DocuSign? Like, what are you talking about, right? So I think so much of the customer experience is being highlighted towards how do we make it such a great, like wonderful experience, but there's so much win that you can have to just say, hey, how do we not make this painful for people when they need us, right? How do we incorporate to be proactive? How do we give them resources that they need? How do we quickly get things done for them, right? So I think that's the other side of it, more of like the pessimistic view of it, probably taking the finance side of this, right? Like the pessimistic side.
Well, I'll just add to that, Chris, because when we talk about, customer experience, we are talking about every single interaction that a
Mhm.
customer has with your brand and then how they feel about it. What is their perception? And going back to what I said in the very beginning, like we often look at the inside of our organizations, the bank that you bring up, like their processes probably look like they're working, right? Because they're forcing people like you to come in and give them that signature. So they're like, well, it's working on their end, and they don't see it as it's really a pain for the customer. And the other part of that is that we often think about this as reactive. We are reacting when things go wrong. Customer service is really about when things go wrong. And what we
Mhm.
should be doing is looking very intentionally at the customer journey, being very proactive about it, fixing those things before they become problems for the customer. So it's a whole big world out there, and the mission of my company is to create fewer ruined days for customers, because I really believe that if we do that, we make a better world, right? Like people are happier. They don't have to call their bank 5 times in a row. That all matters in the world. So I totally agree.
Most definitely, most definitely. Hey, so round robin question, crystal ball time, crystal ball panel. We're gonna go into it. So looking at this crystal ball, right? Looking at that magic 8 ball, when you think about AI and the customer experience for the next 15 years, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What's that emotion? Then we'll kick it off with you, brother.
Yeah, I think every time somebody asks me a 10, 15-year question about AI, I have to explain to them, if I told you what will happen in 10 to 15 years, you wouldn't believe me. It really is that pace of change. I think that's what's important. Look at this as happening faster than you expect it to and moving forward in bigger leaps than you think it will. Because there is all of this opportunity with AI to, number one, gather data about your customers in new ways. Devices, sensors are going to give us access to customer data, and we have to be aligned. If we don't align with the customer, we are going to lose their trust. And when you talk about customer experience, we don't often talk about the ethical side of data gathering. We don't talk about data privacy. It's sort of off limits area, but you can ruin the customer experience by being overly invasive or by using data in ways that does not align with your customer's intent. So I think one of the biggest barriers companies will see to getting to that really futuristic vision is governance. We have to start using data in a way that aligns with users and the way users want us to deliver experiences to them. So I'll set up for everybody by saying the hard thing, and then let everybody else say the futuristic stuff, because my futuristic stuff, yeah, you probably wouldn't believe me.
Nice, nice. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, same as Vin, 15 years is so long in the data space. And if I look at, the type of work I was doing 13 years ago to what I'm doing now, it's absolutely mind blowing how much easier processes have become. How much easier it is to work with some of these tools because there's just like a things that I had to do manually, there's now libraries for, and it's been amazing. But trying to look out 15 years is, so impossible. However, I completely expect with AI for the customer experience to feel more human with less human interaction. And a lot of that is going to be through really nailing personalized recommendations, and the interconnectedness of the data across diverse touch points, really improving the customer experience.
Awesome. Great insight, Kristen. Jenny, close us out. Crystal ball, what does it look like?
So I think part of this is really understanding. I mean, you look at just what's happened in the last few weeks with the custom chats that are being developed, and people are playing in that playground now. I think that the entire customer experience on both B2C and B2B will look completely different. And that's because right now, we as customers often make the choice. We go to a specific brand site, we search for a specific thing. That's going to be flipped. And we're going to have the power to just say, I have this really weird, corner in my yard. What weed thing should I use for it? And it will be served up to us on a silver platter. And it will be less about where we buy it from, and it will be more about providing that individual, very specific value along the way. So I think we all have to get a lot smarter about how we're providing value to the customer today, because that will connect to what's happening in the future. Chris really likes that answer.
Yeah,
Happy there.
most definitely.
He looks
I
delighted.
was sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, centralized, and like I was sitting here taking those data governance, right? Looking at that, getting that intimate customer experience, knowing that customer, meeting them where they are. These are great insights.